So our first input of this afternoon's webinar is from our Northern Ireland's Commissioner for Children and Young People, Koulla Yiasouma. And Koulla is going to talk to you today about her views on the progress that we have made with children's participative rights, but also what else needs to be done.
That's good. Oh, thanks for telling me what I was going to talk about. I'm going to now quickly change what I was going to say, Alicia. No, thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you to the PANDA project for the invitation. So really, the more I read about it and also listening to Karen speak there, it's really very, very exciting and actually very, very important. So I am delighted to be here to open this afternoon event and welcome you all to Northern Ireland, and I'm really sorry that you're not seeing it for real and sitting there eating potato, cheese and onion crisps with a glass of Guinness, but on another day. I also want to thank Alicia for actually in the invitation telling me exactly what I should say, so she's actually probably written most of my remarks today, so if you don't like it, take it up with her. You've heard already what a Children's Commissioner does, and actually those of you who are from Norway, Spain and Belgium, and also I understand that there's some colleagues from Italy, you all have commissioners or ombudsmen for children. So you have, and in Spain and Belgium you have more than one, like we do here in the UK. So I work and cover Northern Ireland, but there are also colleague commissioners in England, Scotland, Wales, and there's an ombudsman for children in the Republic of Ireland that Alicia's already talked to you about. And of course, we have all followed the lead taken by Norway, who had the very, very first ever Children's Commissioner in the world. So when Norway started, the rest of us followed. So it's a little bit daunting to speak to people from Norway, because I appreciate how you've been working on this area much longer than us. So I'm not going to say too much about what I do, just to talk a little bit about remit of my office. So and in accordance with the UNCRC, we work with children up until the age of 18, excepting in two circumstances: if they have a disability or if they've been in the care of the state. So in that case, we go to 21. So we stay with children until 21, and there's a lot of discussion to be had whether that should extend further to 25, but that's again for another place. You've heard I'm required by law, like many of us are, to have due regard to the UNCRC, and that's where I'm going to start today. And this is, again, you all know that the CRC has four guiding principles, four core principles, and they're the lens that we see all the other articles. And one of them is Article 12, which affirms and enshrines the child's right to be seen as fully fledged persons who have the right to express their views in all matters affecting them, and requires that those views be heard and given due weight in accordance with the child's age and maturity. It recognises the potential of children to enrich decision-making processes, share perspectives, and to participate as citizens and actors of change. And that's really going to be the theme, obviously, of what I'm going to say, but of the whole PANDA project. And when you set that alongside all the articles of the convention, the other three principles, right to non-discrimination, the right to have your best interests taken into account, and then the right to life. And then the other ones that become relevant when a child is living in a family that needs state intervention, recognition of the role of parents, the right to maintain a relationship with parents if it's when the child's living away from them, if it's in their best interest, freedom of expression, freedom of thought, belief and religion, freedom of association, I could go on, no interference with family life, protection from violence. The right, Article 21 is really important, the right of a child to have their voice heard in all judicial and administrative proceedings, including adoption, and of course the right to be protected in Article 34 from exploitation or abuse. Here in Northern Ireland, the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child has continually expressed frustration that we don't have formalised structures in which we embed the child's right to have a voice and to have a say. And what we do have, though, is a very strong legislative and policy framework that means that everything should be in place strategically to make it happen. We have our Children Order from 1995, which is the governing piece of legislation that governs, with some reviews and updates, how children in care, children in need, and children on the Child Protection Register are looked after. We have Section 75 of the Northern Ireland Act, which came out of our peace agreement, the Good Friday Agreement. You will hear a lot of talk about Good Friday, but it was actually a really important document from the point of view of trying to enshrine and embed rights into the Constitution of Northern Ireland. The Good Friday Agreement is essentially our Constitution. And the Act that brought it in has a section that says we have to undertake consultation on all policy matters, including with children who are younger. There is also moves to include children in care as a protective group in this way. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we view children in care in a minute. We also have something called the Children's Services Cooperation Act, which again enshrines children's rights, the need for all organisations to cooperate with each other and to develop a strategy, which was in our case, the Children's Strategy, which was published last year, and again has an outcome which says we must actively encourage and support children and young people to contribute to society and to ensure that they are part of the decision-making and planning processes on the issues which affect them. So on the big stuff and on the little stuff. And that's really, really important. And as I just said, it is as a result of the work of organisations like VOIPEC coming together with a very receptive group of civil servants led by Eilish McDaniel, who you're going to hear from in a minute, that means that the Northern Ireland Government has identified young people in care as a group requiring particular attention and effort. And if the state is to live up to their responsibility of being a parent, then they must act as any parent, as any good parent should, by putting their children first and involving them in all the decision making. I don't know how many of you are parents, but the idea of the family, of the dinner table, and of having family meetings and of sitting down and chatting is the bit I hated, because I would much prefer telling my kids what to do. But clearly it's much better decision making if you are having those regular conversations with your children from when they are tiny, and involving them in the everyday life of the family. And what we have to think about is how that translates when the state is the parent. And that's why the work of PANDA is so important. And we know children of all ages are able to have their voice heard as long as we're able to listen to them. It's about us listening, not about them speaking. As of last Monday in Northern Ireland, we had 3,557 children who were in the care of the state. And we've seen an increase of nearly 200 during the pandemic. You are going to hear from Eilish about our new strategy for looked after children, A Life Deserved, caring for children and young people. And in it, there's a statement about how it's critical that children and young people are included in the processes that are important when they're looked after, when they're in the care of the state. And that includes care planning, looked after children reviews, the development and implementation of education plans and learning plans. There is a statement in it that says, where age and maturity permits, the child or young person should be fully engaged in and central to each of these processes, and every step should be taken to ensure that they understand what is being proposed for their short, medium and longer term. So there's a very clear policy intent in Northern Ireland that we will hear the voices, we will involve children who are in the care of the state. But there's a mindset issue that we have to address. And this term, where age and maturity permits, worries me. I don't think it's meant to worry me, but it's worrying, because that is your get out clause. That is your excuse not to do it. Where age and maturity, that says, you know, sometimes they can be too young. Sometimes if they're wee, Of course, we're talking about traumatized children. Of course, it's difficult to get their voices heard, but it's not impossible. And you all know better than I that children, we just find the way to talk to them. We don't all communicate in the same way. We all have different ways. So we need to shift this mindset that speaking to younger children is the exception. But actually, it's just the most joyful thing we do, even with children who have had a really difficult time. It's the most rewarding thing that we do. So we must be in a mindset of we will do, not let's find a way not to do. And even when children say, I don't want to take part in this, they are saying something. They are saying something that we should hear and we should listen to. So what we have to do is understand that children are not passive recipients of services, but as I've said, actors in their own development. And by doing that, we have the knowledge that involving children does actually deliver better decisions for them, which are more relevant and better informed. Now, let me be clear. Giving a child a voice, listening to children, including them, doesn't mean you do everything that they tell you to do, they ask you to do, because you have the responsibility of doing it in their best interest. But that's everything I say doesn't get done. Actually, I'm Children's Commissioner, I have that experience quite a lot. But what I need to hear is why is it not possible? And then I feel respected, I feel heard, I feel listened to. And that will help that child understand and be part of the decision-making process, that they understand what's happening around them. Also, going back to mindset, we need to remember that it can be very daunting for adults and as professionals, because it makes us more accountable and responsive to our children, and possibly dilutes power. And I suppose what I would say, if the dilution of your power is a concern for you, I would ask you to look in the mirror and think about what job you're doing and why you're in this job. But I don't underestimate how daunting and scary it is to actually embed this way of working. As I said, children understand the decisions made about them, and children benefit from the very act of participation, as it contributes to their skills, to the sense of their own power and role, to confidence and enjoyment, and actually engages them in the broader society and in the world around them. And it talks about how we move from this thing about, in social work, and I suppose I am very much talking about a British-Irish view. In social work, we see children and families as clients, or we used to. We need to shift that move from clients to partners in this process. And that's what listening to all of them does. And what the PANDA project aims to do is that working with under 12s supports social workers to continue, as I said, that move from being viewed from clients to or recipients of services to partners. And it brings to life the pedagogical approach. Someone can ever say that word right, but it's so important. If we are serious about being social pedagogues, then we have to be serious about working with our young people. So we have to skill our social workers. They are under enormous pressure with huge caseloads that I've just already talked to you. We've seen an increase in referrals. We've seen an increase in children who are coming into care, enormous pressures. And I am not for 1 minute suggesting as individuals they're not doing their best. The issue is that they need to be given the time and the space to develop the skills and build their confidence to be able to support those little voices to be involved in those big decisions. And in order to facilitate the relationship, the processes and places need to be right too. The work must continue to shift from trying to get our children to fit in to our planning, reviewing, education and transition development processes. We try to shoehorn children into these very adult-centric processes. And what we have to do is flip it the other way around and adapt those processes to meet the needs of our children, young people, particularly the under 12s and the younger ones. It's not about them fitting into the way we do business. It's about our business fitting into the best way they can be involved. And that obviously includes child-friendly spaces. And actually, I think we are beginning to do that. I was in Derry yesterday, opening a facility, and actually it was brilliant to see how they were determined to make it more child-friendly. So as I've said, in the last 20 years, there's been an increase in the recognition and acceptance of children's right to participate and have their voice heard in decision-making processes. And legislators, government departments, statutory agencies are increasingly acknowledging the CRC and the fact that when listened to, children and young people can play a vital role in the delivery and planning of services. But in the home of the Lundy model, we have in Northern Ireland the most eminent theorists on children's participation, Professor Laura Lundy, who's a colleague of Karen's. But, and so we should know better here in Northern Ireland where the Lundy model was developed. But progress here has been erratic and piecemeal. And we can see that children under 12, particularly, we've seen great work in schools, and we can see that they do have a voice. And like I said, we do need to listen. And that's why, as I say, PANDA is important. And I can sense a shift. I can sense a shift in Northern Ireland. I can sense a shift in the mindset. I can sense a shift in the voice. And also what social media has done is young people taking that platform and that voice, and organizations like VOIPEC supporting young people who we consider more vulnerable to be able to find their voice in a safe and controlled way. So in conclusion, and you'll be pleased that I'm doing really well. This is the first time in ages I've stuck to time. Brilliant. So like Karen, actually it's quite interesting, Karen, I didn't realize we had so much in common. I trained as a social worker in the 1980s and came to Northern Ireland in 1994.
Oh, wow.
I know. I left the statutory sector and worked in NGOs working with children and young people. But when I was a very young social worker, I went to university to study, and I must admit, I did have a little bit of a saviour complex. And for me, and a lot of us at that time, it was about helping children and saving them. But thankfully, as I've said, that's changed. And we see children and families as partners in their care. And as such, to be genuine partners in the decisions made about that care, we have to listen to them, we have to respect them, and we have to understand that we can't do this without them. So we have to think differently about the power relationship and see children for the active citizens they are, because they never have failed. In my however many years since I qualified, which is nearly coming, 35 years since I qualified, I have never been let down when I've asked a child their opinion. I've been surprised, I've been challenged, but I have never ever been disappointed. And it is the most rewarding and enriching and challenging and scary experience, but that's what it's all about. So thank you very much for listening. Really good luck with the work. It's so important that these little ones, the under 12s, have a voice and are heard. And I really look forward to seeing those changes make a difference to the lives of children who are experiencing social work in Northern Ireland. Thank you very much.